Hi, everyone. In American history, many events have been important in how our country has changed. It was in 1923 that a woman named Alice Paul, who was the founder of the National Woman's Party, proposed what would now be considered the Equal Rights Amendment. The Equal Rights Amendment said this: the Equal Rights Amendment said equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of sex. Now, that was first introduced in 1923, but then reintroduced in 1971, and eventually passed in 72, overwhelmingly in the House and Senate. Now, why would it be passed? Well, we could thank the women's liberation movement of the 50s and 60s and the book written by Betty Friedan called The Feminine Mystique, which strongly suggested that women in the suburbs, white women especially, had the right to be out and about and working and pursuing their careers. And there was a stereotype in the 1950s, and TV even reflected that. Movies and TV reflected that the woman who was a good wife and a good role model was actually at home. And that was the way it was looked at for many years until Betty Friedan wrote her book. There was this difficulty about where can a woman go? There were no police officers. I can remember only one TV show, Perry Mason, where I saw a woman as a judge in the late 50s, early 60s. And then, of course, I think there was one woman lawyer, and that was actually played by Betty Davis in a Perry Mason episode. So most women were seen as being in the home. So women police officers, women business owners, not likely. So in 1971, this law was proposed and it passed. Now here was the interesting part of it. Originally, the original time frame was to have it become amendment to the U.S. Constitution by 1978. Well, they were able to get 35 states to ratify. They needed 38 states to ratify. You had to have 3/5 of the states ratify. And that meant 38 out of 50. That meant 38 out of 50, they had 35. So, what did they need? Um, you had, it's 3/4 of the states. Is it 3/4? Yeah, 3/4 of the states. 75% of the states had to ratify. Well, it looked like it was going to be ratified, and then it stalled in 1978, so they gave it an extension to 1982. Well, in the process of the ratification, there was a lady named Phyllis Schlafly who stood up and said, "This is not right." Her purpose was to stop the amendment because, in her opinion, it would be a danger to families and also simply a way to really hurt women's rights. For example, she wanted to make sure that women had protection. And she said that she believed that this amendment would take away any protections. She wanted women to be able to have children, or as I should say, have custody, win custody over children, and issue of property rights. And there was a couple other things that she was concerned about. She thought the rights of women harmed. Shapley further claimed it would deprive women of the right to be supported and protected by men. For example, Shapley believed the amendment might lead to unisex bathrooms or require women to serve in combat roles. It was also interesting because she was of the opinion that women would lose alimony payments, women would be drafted into the military. It would just really upend the family unit. And so she started a movement against the Equal Rights Amendment. Well, as a result of her actions, 5 state legislatures revoked their approval. We had Idaho, Kentucky, Nebraska, Tennessee, and South Dakota. Now, what's interesting about that is just maybe 2017, Nevada approved it. And then another year later, in 2018, Illinois approved it. And just recently, Virginia approved it. So you had 3 states. Now remember, I told you 35 originally had ratified it, they needed 38. However, the year for ratification was supposed to be in 1982. So there's been a lot of debate, disagreement over whether or not you can actually pass a law that's been passed, an amendment that's been past its time. And considering the fact you have the 5 revocations, are they legal? So every year, or almost every year, the Equal Rights Amendment is reproposed and reproposed. And so the issue is whether it ever will be a law, we don't know. But as of right now, most people suggest that the process had to be repeated in order to get it legitimately passed. So the Equal Rights Amendment did not pass. And since then, since the whole debate started, we've seen so much change. We've seen a woman, many women, one woman run for vice president. Actually, it was, there have been several women run for president since then. As we know, a Hillary Clinton was on a Democratic ticket in 2016, and a woman for Secretary of State, women in the cabinet. There have been women senators, women congressmen, women businesswomen. One woman who ran for president was also a businesswoman, head of a company. So times have changed. There are women in all walks of life, police officers, judges, attorneys, everything. So the goal of what was meant to be the Equal Rights Amendment seems to have been achieved, the equality. And still, there are issues regarding custody and regarding who gets alimony. But what's happened is the laws themselves have adjusted themselves so that people are more likely to see an equal decision in most cases. Now, there's still questions about equal pay and even the draft of the military. Well, with an all volunteer army that was started years ago, the issue of drafting wasn't a concern anymore because there are now women in the military serving in various capacities, women who are in various aspects of the military. So a lot of the goals that were set forth in the women's liberation movement and also with the Equal Rights Amendment have been achieved. So, but it was called ERA. ERA was such a potent force that several presidential candidates had to come out in support of it in order to be considered electable. This was in the 1970s. And I believe it was President Reagan who was probably the only one who was against it. He was for it at one time, and he changed his mind and said he was against it. So it has been another litmus test. You know that word from the abortion issues? It's been a litmus test. And even for Supreme Court justices. So this whole Equal Rights Amendment, though it hasn't become the official law of the land, has had a huge impact on the United States and continues to be and have an impact. Thanks for watching.